The gender divide in Australia has narrowed over the past 2 decades, but women are still losing the battle for equal pay. The most recent AMP NatSem Income and Wealth report found a man has the potential to earn $2.4 million over a lifetime, compared to a woman who earns nearly $1 million less. It's probably not much of a surprise then that a woman's superannuation will typically be half that of a man's at retirement. Well, my next guest believes equal opportunity is an outcome that you can create yourself, and she's seeing a lot of women opening their own doors to financial freedom through property investment. JoChivers is featured in a new book, Property as a Girl's Best Friend. Her company Property Bloom is a developer and project manager, and the story of how and why she developed a passion for property is truly inspiring.
It's really a matter of building up your own investments and not just relying on a spouse or superannuation to have enough money into our retirements. It's really important to start investing early.
And so when did this issue really hit home for you, and what was the inspiration then to get into property investing?
Well, I picked up a book about 10 years ago, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and that was really my inspiration for starting out in property. I realised that we didn't have any investments apart from our superannuation, and we were planning a family, and I just thought we needed to get some investments behind us. And one of the words of advice that Robert Kiyosaki gives in that book is to educate yourself. So I went out, did a property course, decided I'd invest in property, did quite an intensive course, educated myself financially, and then started investing in property. And since then I've been able to build up a substantial investment portfolio, and then that's led to my business being created, which is Property Bloom, a project manager for time-poor clients who want to then develop property.
So Jo, how did you come to be part of this book?
Well, Property as a Girl's Best Friend was formed by two directors of propertywomen.com, and their names Rachel Barnes and Judith Taylor. They've put this group of women together, Property Women, where women investors can network with like-minded women, and they came up with the idea of writing a book which is written by real women who are investing in property. So I was lucky enough to be invited in to write the chapter on development and subdivision. And I've spoken at some of their presentations as well in Sydney. What
sort of property investors are most suited to this actual strategy of subdivision and development then?
Well, it's a fantastic way of adding value to property by developing it, and most of my clients are really looking for that next step from buying and holding property to developing it and adding value. So what we can do is create up to 6 properties from one in the areas that I develop in, and that's just a great way to boost your portfolio of properties. So yeah, it's a really exciting way to get moving forward fairly quickly.
Subdivision and development can be a high reward strategy, but it also is highly risky. Where does the risk lie in this strategy?
Well, developing property is risky. There's various stages of the development, right from starting point of finding the property that you're going to develop and making sure you can actually develop that property. Obviously that's very important, and you can start with talking to your local council to make sure that, to find out what is permissible for that particular property. And then it's looking at things like aspect and slope to the property, because you want to make sure the aspect is correct for developing, and if it's too much slope to the property, you'll have more expensive costs in retaining walls and so forth. Right through the DA process, you want to make sure that you've designed the project correctly, that council are going to approve your application, and then into the build phase, it's important to have your figures and make sure you've got accurate building costs, because you don't want to have a blowout and lose all your profit. So there's various stages that all carry some risk. But if you do your homework, and if it's your first development, perhaps use a project manager to help you and to learn the process so that you can do the next one on your own and feel more confident.
Before looking at the specifics of an actual property, though, I guess you have to identify a particular area which is right for development. Is that how you do it?
Well, it's important to pick an area that has massive growth potential or good growth potential, because there's no point in developing in an area that may be going backwards in population growth, and it needs to be a diverse economy, so there's lots of employment available. So there's various things you need to look for when you choose a location for your development.
Now, personally, you've developed dozens of properties, and you've got your own fairly large portfolio. Just tell us where you started, though. What was the first investment?
I've done 30 projects, so I've developed over 30 properties, and built up my own portfolio as well during the whole time. So my very first investment was actually an off-the-plan unit on the Northern Beaches in Sydney, and that when I was studying, it was part of my course to find a suburb that was actually going to have a flow-on effect from capital growth, and I found a suburb that hadn't yet had some good growth. Purchased an off-the-plan villa. It was one of 4. It was a small development. It was very expensive at the time, and I remember freaking out and thinking, gosh, I'm putting so much money into this, but I'd done all my research, everything stacked up on paper. So I took the risk, jumped in, purchased the unit off the plan. 12 months later, I was able to make $155,000 from that particular deal. So that was a great first reference for me in getting into property investing.
In your line of work, you're watching property prices very closely. In terms of the overall property market and as we look for a recovery for the Australian housing market, what are you seeing from your experiences, and are you seeing a rebound in prices and the market at the moment?
Well, I'm seeing the really early stages of a growth phase happening in the areas that I develop in. The first home buyers are really stimulating the market, but it's important to choose a location also that's had some good capital growth, but not too much, because you may have already missed the party there. But you want to make sure it hasn't come back severely either. So the areas that I'm developing in really had quite a good plateau, and they've been stable for about 4 or 5 years, and they're just starting to get some good growth of up to 5 to 8% in the past 6 months.